everybody. Artistry and Finesse with you on a Monday night. I believe it's episode 6 of this season of The Bachelorette, give or take. Finesse, tonight was, I think, the most emotional episode of the season. Mrs. Artistry and I, about midway through, we decided we needed something to help us cope. I went downstairs. I got like a big block of blue cheese, some chips, some crackers, and we just housed it. And we just watched with a lot of emotion.
Nothing will get you through an emotional turbulence like an episode of The Bachelor better than blue cheese and crackers. And just eating and holding each other, wrapping yourselves in blankets, candles all around, I imagine. Like, you probably set up your living room much like one of the dates where, you know, you don't look at each other when you're having a conversation. You're both sort of angled as if you're facing the front of the room, like someone's watching the two of you. And that's the way I think most people picture you and Mrs. Artistry watching these episodes.
Yeah, listen, I don't want to shatter anybody's image of us, but she was basically on her computer looking at like the federal rules of civil procedure and like extending her hand for crackers and blue cheese. And I'm not sure she ever looked at me. But I know that she felt it. I know she felt my presence.
Right. It's like she's sort of emotionally repelling, and you won't let her fall. You won't let her fall into whatever place she would get to had she gone, had she put aside the rules of civil procedure and really dove into the episode. You're there whether she wants to do that or whether she doesn't want to do that.
It's whatever she needs. Today is actually our anniversary, and what better way to spend it than, and it's our 6th anniversary with episode 6 of The Bachelor. Very fitting.
Why didn't Mrs. Artistry want to come on the podcast and accept a happy anniversary congratulations from GTOG and TBK Nation?
Do you want to accept a happy anniversary?
Not sure.
Just say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy anniversary, Mrs. Artistry. We're all happy for both of you.
She's very appreciative. So let's get into it. Tonight's episode was all about James, and I, for one, am happy to see him go. I don't know if I could have taken another week of his tears.
What I want to know is whatever happened to Snitches Get Stitches. We're now celebrating all these other guys for turning James in to Desiree. And I want to know what happened to guy talk. What happened to guy code? Do you throw that out the window when you go on The Bachelor? Like, why can't James vocalize the thoughts that every one of these guys is having, which is that this will be great when I make an appearance at some low-level club in 6 months when I'm no longer on the show? Why is that so frowned upon? And why the rush to tell Des? Why?
It's a little creepy, the groupthink that's going on. The fact that there are like 6 guys sitting there going, how could you betray the woman we all love together at the same time? It's a little bizarre, quite frankly.
And that's the biggest problem with all of this. It's like, James may not be there for the right reasons. Maybe you're Drew, you don't think he's there, you don't think James is there for the right reasons. Why is that not a good thing for Drew? Let James be there for the wrong reasons, and then he won't win, and then you can win. Why make James aware that everyone knows he's there for the wrong reasons, and then he tries to get there for the right reasons? It doesn't make sense.
I think they just fall into the trap of, having seen this show so many times. It can hurt you, but it can also help you. And I think we saw that with Drew. He had like the perfect textbook one-on-one date where he had 90 seconds to hit his marks and explain what makes Drew Drew. And what did he do? He really nailed it. He said, I have an alcoholic father. He's my hero. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not quite enough, Drew. A bit more. Did a tree fall on your father? I'm thinking this to myself, and as soon as I think it says, and he has cancer.
This is unbelievable. I want to show you something. So we're communicating through video chat. Now, I can pull this up. If you look right where I'm pointing on my iPad notes, it says,
yes.
Drew is so rigid. Dad was an alcoholic. Is this enough? And then I wrote, just as I said that, Drew reveals that his dad has cancer, quote, there's so much strength. And really,
right.
I mean, what a reveal from Drew. Like
great work, Drew.
Yeah, it's like
great reveal.
Just when you think walls are down, there's more walls to come down. It's an unbelievable reveal by Drew. It's great timing for his walls coming down. It's a great substantive wall coming down. And major points for Drew for executing that absolutely flawlessly.
Yeah, he really landed it. And it took, what, all of 90 seconds for her to come to the conclusion that he has a tremendous amount of depth?
And let's be honest, the father being an alcoholic would not have been enough.
No, not even close. Everybody's father's an alcoholic.
Especially because
my kid's father
is because he's a recovering alcoholic. He's not even an active alcoholic.
That's right. You better be active.
Right. It's one thing if he's drunk when you're saying that and he like barges on the show and does something. But if he was an alcoholic 20 years ago, wake me up when a tree falls on him.
That's exactly right. So after that date, and he really like finished strong by noting, I think if you can work like a bit of an accent into your voiceover narration, all the better. He said, it was wonderful. There were guitarristas on this date.
Right. Well,
that was
again.
If you can do that and you're not Juan Pablo, I mean, you've really like just rocketed to the forefront.
I'm going to take your reference to Juan Pablo and I'm going to segue it into a conversation about Juan Pablo. Have you ever seen anyone put forth less effort than Juan Pablo?
Never.
I mean, you're in Spain, for God's sake, Juan Pablo. You know Spanish and you play soccer. Like, this is your time to shine. This is Roberto in a minor league baseball uniform. This is if you had taken Roberto to play softball against, a girls' softball team for a group date. He would have hit a home run literally and figuratively. and nothing from Juan Pablo. He started off
Where was Juan Pablo with this whole James thing? I'll tell you where he was. He was taking a nap.
Right. He's just mentally checked out. I don't know if he's doing like a Sammy Sosa, baseball's been very good to me, but I don't speak English type of thing. But it was a really poor performance. And if anyone could have taken the route that James was thinking that James might take, which is to lose and then become the next Bachelor, Juan Pablo could have done that had he revealed any sort of personality or emotional investment in this process at any point, which he didn't do until he started crying at the end. And I'm sitting there, drinking port out of this little glass, and I'm saying to myself, it's not enough, Juan Pablo. It's too little, too late.
Too little, too late. Juan Pablo, did you even think about your daughter the whole time? If you're not thinking about your daughter, you better at least be using her to advance your cause. And he couldn't even do that.
Show a picture of your daughter. Send in a poem from your daughter.
Do something.
Something. Like, it's just so lazy. I mean, and speaking of lazy, James's goaltending in the soccer match.
That was embarrassing.
I mean, that right there is enough to get sent home, in my opinion. And then the other thing that really stood out from the soccer match before we move on is Brooks, the guy from Utah.
Yeah.
And I say he's from Utah for a reason. He wouldn't stop calling it football. And I'm thinking to myself, there's not a single person who lives in Utah that actually calls soccer football.
That's so obnoxious by Brooks.
It's like, what are you, too good for us, Brooks?
Come on, Brooks.
You want to go? Why don't you go live in Spain? Go live in Argentina if you want to call it football. Not in Utah, Brooks.
Yeah, just don't even get on the plane, Brooks.
All right, what do you got? What else? Who else made an impression for you tonight?
Well, I think the most obnoxious guy of the season is actually Michael, the prosecutor.
No question.
His default emotion is infuriated. Like, Michael, Like just relax, man. You're in Barcelona. You're playing some soccer.
There's guitaristas everywhere.
There's guitaristas everywhere. Why are you so pissed at everybody?
Right. He's so uptight. He has no chance of winning. We can agree on that, right? I mean, he's the one not getting sent to hometowns.
Wait a minute. He got sent home tonight.
No, Michael made it through.
Did you watch tonight's episode? Oh, did he get a rose?
Yeah, Michael got a rose. Juan Pablo, Casey, and James got sent home.
You're right. That's a really embarrassing moment for me.
Did you watch the episode? Look, I think I know that the people out there are upset right now. I'll just preemptively forgive you on behalf of GTOG Nation. I know it's your anniversary. The blue cheese.
I was taking the tray of blue cheese downstairs.
The blue cheese was flowing like wine. I mean, it's to be expected that something slips through the cracks on a night like tonight.
So how far are we from hometowns right now? Are we 1 week away?
Well, if this was episode 6, you got episode 7 coming up next week. You're going to send one guy home, and then you got 4 guys left, and that's hometowns. So
what's your prediction? I think we can make a prediction at this point, probably, for hometowns.
Well, I think Michael gets sent home. So I think you're looking at a hometown of Drew, of Zach, of Chris, and of Brooks.
I think that's a strong quartet, and I got to tell you, Zach, I think is for real. That guy, he's making an impression.
My favorite part of Zach's performance tonight, and I agree with you that it was really stellar, was when he said, quote, "I go to museums every chance I get." And I wonder, is he the first drilling fluid engineer who's ever said that?
It may be.
Like, do you believe that? I mean, do you think he's a sophisticated man? Do you think...
He almost was a priest, Zach.
And what are you saying from that? Like, does that mean priest sophisticated?
I think there's some depth there. I think there's some depth there that you don't get from hearing a 90-second story about someone's alcoholic father who has cancer.
Well, I'm not sure about the depth, but I know he's deeper than the guy with the six-pack abs who came out of the limo with no shirt on.
I thought that was Zach. What are we even talking about at this point?
I'm saying, you thought he was all abs on that first night.
I see what you did.
And it turns out he's more than just, he's more than just an 8-pack, and I don't mean he's a 10-pack. I mean, he's got depth. He's got a personality.
You're saying it goes beyond the abs.
Yeah, and I think, if they should do a segment during the after the final rose thing called Beyond the Abs. And it goes in depth into Zach and Dez's relationship with each other.
All right, au revoir to James. I think that we'll soon be saying goodbye to Michael. We'll all look forward to that. I feel good. I feel good about the season. I feel like we're building to something here. Who do
you think's going to win?
I look at Dez's brother, and then I think who could be more diametrically opposed to Dez's brother than Chris. I think Chris is what Dez is looking for. I think she's looking for the anti-brother. I think Chris is going to be the winner.
I think Chris is a strong choice, and I think what Chris has going for him is that he's not going to come across as a player to Dez's brother.
Right.
We all know memorably Dez's brother looked at Sean. He sized Sean up and he said, "Yo, bro, you're a player." And I don't think anyone's going to look at Chris and say, "Hey, you're a player." They're going to look at Chris and the brother's going to be non-threatened. He's not going to feel any sort of threat by Chris. And that's maybe the most threatening thing that Chris has going for him.
Chris just needs to read him a poem.
Well, the fact that Dez wrote a poem back for Chris, you put a lot of stock into kisses. You're like the podcast kiss expert. You're the kiss.
Yes, I am.
The kiss, hair, and fatherhood expert. I like to think of myself as the poetry expert. And that poem that she wrote for Chris was absolutely huge. You don't see that very often. Especially when there's still 8 guys left. You get a poem usually around fantasy suite time.
It's like giving somebody a scrapbook.
Right. You don't, and it's, the scrapbook is usually a desperation move by one of the contestants with like 7 or 8 episodes left.
You would never see the Bachelorette give like one of the guys a scrapbook. But that's basically what she did with words.
Right. A word scrapbook is what that was.
Yeah, it was a powerful moment. All right. Well, we'll look forward to next week. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Until next time, the Big Kibbutz.
Time to kibitz, time to kibitz, time to kibitz. It's the big kibitz. Come and kibitz with the big kibitz. Ooh, big kibitz. Big. It's the big kibitz. Come and kibitz with the big kibitz. Ooh, big kibitz.